Did you ever want to be there at the start, when it all began? For something huge. Something that will change the landscape of miniature wargaming forever. That time is now. Right now. Formulated from hundreds of hours of community feedback. Literally created for the people, by the people. I am elated to present to you, from miniwargaming.com, the future of gaming. Ravaged Stars. 60 years ago. Somewhere in the depths of space, there's a region ignored by most, claimed by none. It is almost entirely devoid of anything of worth. No trade routes or rare minerals, only limited colonization targets, and none that would be considered prime locations. Yet, it was to play host to a rare sight, a pageant the likes had not been seen in an epoch. For the Vanguard had come, and they had come in force. The fleet that mustered in the system was colossal in size. Its flagship, the Rohalinth Resplendent, was the venue of the last discourse between its leadership before they engaged on their quest. The fleet embarked on its purpose. The four main officers of the fleet raised their glasses, filled with potent alcohol, and they emptied them in one. It was a tradition as old as the Vanguard themselves, some said. But it had its purpose. For the consumption of that much intoxicant would loosen tongues, lower inhibitions. Nothing would change the trajectory of the event, but in these instances, the flag officers would tell their prime of their concerns, their fears. For sometimes, even the greatest of men can be ignorant of the concerns of their subordinates. Only human. Any commander could miss something. So this last rite was performed to make certain that the admiral would know the true shape of his command staff. Lord Davicus, the leader of the expedition, gave the customary invitation for comment by just raising his glass again. He was a striking man, tall, robust, muscular, and energetic. He was not what anyone would call pretty, but should he choose, there were few who would rebuff his advances. He was a legend in his own lifetime. The third most decorated officer in Vanguard history. For his age, of course. If he kept up his victories and actions of merit, he could well pip the ancient heroes of old. But few doubted this. He was a force of nature, and he elicited loyalty and compliance from all he met or confronted. He was the brightest light for a score of generations. So, my friends, my colleagues, what has not been said, what may not have been done, share your concerns now, or forever hold your peace. What troubles thee? It was customary for the officers to respond in lines of authority. Hence it was Lord Tyrak who all looked to first. Tyrak, the same age as Davicus, a similar build. Often they had been called twins in their youth, but they were inseparable then, all the way to the academy and beyond. But this was the first time they had been on active duty in the same theatre in quite some time. When Davicus had been given this high-profile command, the crowning accomplishment of his career thus far, he naturally requested the assistance of his old friend Tyrak. As he put it to his friend, "If I am to go down in the history books, I could not fathom the tale not including you, old friend. Will you join me?" Of course. The answer was an emphatic yes. Davicus had no doubt it would be, or he would not have asked at all. Many had claimed that most of Davicus's victories had come from the ministrations of Tyrak, his tactical genius. But then again, many had claimed that Tyrak would not thrive under anyone but his friend Davicus. His solo career had been unremarkable, but then, it had not been the most audacious or active of zones he had been given to administer. Tyrak had little luck in this regard, as he never got the chance to really shine. Many stated that Tyrak was the steadier officer, but not the most bold. hence Davicus always outperformed him. Despite this, and the hotly discussed rivalry assumed by others, there was utter accord between the two men. Never once had they come to blows since they were in their 20s, and that was while drunk. Never had they parted under bad terms. And now they were together again. Both beamed as he spoke jovially. "I do have concerns about the lead officer. Some say he cannot hold his liquor." The two laughed loudest at this. The other smiled. All but Lady Maxima. "But no, we are prepared. We are ready. All our lives we have dreamt of crossing into unknown worlds, uncharted space. Now is our time, Davy. We are ready." Lord Emmath was next. A hammer in form and function, Emmath was one of Davicus's most aggressive and exuberant officers. He knew what he was good for, and he did not get ideas above his station. He stayed in his lane. He was in charge of advanced terrestrial and boarding operations, and he led from the front. He spoke. "None. I have no fear. I have no concerns. There is nothing that can stop this much Vanguard power concentrated in one place. Nothing." Lady Maxima snorted at this, and the smiles on faces began to drop. They were entirely wiped away by her next sally.
"This is a waste of time, resources, and effort. The Vanguard power you tout, Emmath, is not an unlimited resource. We are needed elsewhere to maintain the vigil, to protect our holdings and those who rely on us. Nor has any previous expedition been successful. Drones come and go through, collecting scraps of sod and reporting that there is something behind the barrier. The Veil. But what of it? Who cares? The Veil is not something we should be tinkering or toying with. Is the universe we have not enough? How many galaxies still do not know the packs of the Vanguard? How many enemies now skulk in the dark, waiting for any sign of weakness? We are about to lead the most advanced and sizable expedition fleet mustered in a generation. More. Why? Nothing useful has ever come back from beyond the Veil. But either way, this should never have been our priority. Nothing will ever come out of the Veil that was not sent in. Strategically, it is a void. So why are we actually here?
Lord Davicus responded. "And yet we are going anyway. Maxima, you seem to forget who we are. We are not just peacekeepers, builders and warriors. The Vanguard were ever at the forefront of expansion, colonization and research. We are explorers, Maxima, and we should never have forgotten that. It is as much a part of our core as the Pax itself, and it is why we are here. Not just on the footstep of history, preparing to penetrate the Veil, but also why we exist at all. We are explorers. We must push the boundaries of our knowledge, experience, and understanding of all things at all points. Or we as a culture and the races that make up the Vanguard, we will shrivel and die. We must be true to who and what we are."
We have already lost 12 vessels and all hands attempting your vaunted and much-loved explorations. They have never worked out well in recent ages, because they are fripperies. They are distractions.
Exactly why we have assembled this, the 1000th expedition. Maxima, I thank you for your candor. It does me honor. But it is enough now. We are here. We are certainly not going to skulk back to our own space and disperse this armada. You know that as well as I. Lord Tyrak then interjected. Aye, indeed. Imagine what the populace would think if we went to all this trouble to just run away. It would embolden our enemies and elicit contempt. We rule by respect, Maxima. Your proposal actually threatens more than the loss of this entire fleet. One sign of weakness. One. And the galaxies will burn in rebellion. We have no choice now. For the existence of the Rohirrim and the Pax, we must go.
I am aware, of course, but I had to speak my truth. You may well all rue the day you pushed my reservations aside, but I will be there to see it. I will stay the course. Despite how much folly I think this is, I will follow you, Davicus. And none but us will know of my protestations.
She then turned and looked at Lord Davicus dead on.
I have made my point. I wish you to secure it within you, so when things begin to turn on us, you will have my words in your ears, and you will order the withdrawal when we find nothing there at all. Or worse, we find a new enemy that knew nothing of us until we smashed through reality to invade their realm. Never forget, in all of the decisions that come from this point, we are the invaders. We are in the wrong.
Duly noted, said Lord Davicus. And at that, the four then discussed the order of battle, the arrangements of the flights and the wings, the preparedness levels to operate under during transit, and then in the space beyond the veil. As always, the Vanguard were prepared for everything and anything. Or so they thought. 24 hours later. Each vessel was aligned and every last one was prepared. Only the final address remained. Comms opened up across the Armada, and the holographic visage of Lord Davicus could be seen by near all as he began. On this day, we, the Eternal Vanguard, stand ready to take the first step into a wider world, a brighter future. Not for an epoch have so many forces been mustered in one place. Not for an epoch or more have we arrayed ourselves like this for anything other than to repel a vast enemy threat. We are the 1000th Vanguard expedition. Peace has been largely kept by our efforts for 4 epochs. We will not falter. But our hegemony, our pax, has been universal across the galaxies we protect. But now, we make that true. For on this, the 1000th Vanguard expedition, our largest ever, with 1,000 ships at our command, it is now that we reach beyond the confines of our own universe. It is today we take the final step. For it is today that we, the Vanguard, pierce the veil, and then proceed into the unknown. For none have ever entered the veil and returned. Not for 1,000 years has anyone tried. And it is time. So on our 1000th Vanguard expedition, with 1,000 ship armada, with 1,000 men, do we take this last momentous voyage. For the honor of Rohirrim, for the pride of the Vanguard, we head forth where no one has gone before. And with that, 1,000 engines whirred into action. Power built in them all, and then, as one, they cruised through space toward the veil. The shimmering barrier defied all attempts to scan, assess, catalogue, or characterize it. For all intents and purposes, it did not exist. Yet none could scan anything behind it, anything at all. The ultimate enigma, a riddle that was about to be solved. The Rohirrim Resplendent, as flagship, took the point and was the first to reach the veil. All held their breaths as the ship slowly pushed through it. It seemed to be like a bubble that did not wish to be penetrated, as colors and distortions surrounded the Resplendent. Then, finally, with a snap, the energies pulled away from the ship, as it simply disappeared. The field, the veil, seemed to spring back as a reaction, and energies again fluctuated across its surface. Now, there was no turning back, and the rest of the fleet moved in and through. The Vanguard station that witnessed the transit was suddenly surrounded by empty space and silence once more. The present. 60 years had passed. No sign or signal had been received in all of that time. Nothing. The 1000th expedition, only 3 months after its disappearance into the Veil. And now, it had become a cultural taboo to even mention it, in polite company at the least. But many did still talk about it, in hushed whispers to their partners, to their friends, to anyone brave enough to discuss this most dangerous of subjects. For many now believed that everything had gone wrong since then. Nothing had stayed the same. Regions that had previously been subdued, if not entirely absorbed body and soul into the packs of the Vanguard, had openly rebelled. Adversaries that had been contained were now bitter rivals. The delicate lattice of alliances and obligations that enabled the Vanguard were unraveling at a horrifying pace. It had all fallen apart, and some now whispered that it was all connected to the Veil somehow. The 1000th expedition. It was as if something had fundamentally altered in the very fabric of reality, as if the Vanguard had been cursed. None believed in such superstitious rubbish in public, yet the whispers continued. They said that all of this was a punishment, a tax, for the affront of breaking the natural order of things. The Veil was now likened to Pandora's box, the wellspring of all the evils that now faced the previously dominant power. All of the realms were now under threat, as they had not been since the first epochs, their very first steps into space. The pressure was rising every day. Few believed now that there was a good outcome in the future. Most foresaw only death and destruction. A dream shared by an entire community across the myriad stars. The nightmare of the return. And so, when it happened, when they returned, few were shocked. Oh, again, in public there was rampant disbelief, utter confusion. But in the very soul of the Vanguard, they had known this was going to happen. War was about to be waged in a manner that had not been performed since the dark days, before the Pacts. And the Vanguard and all of their constituent parts were utterly and totally unprepared for the barbarity that was unleashed on them. The 1000 ships of the expedition returned, carrying 1,000 veteran warriors. But they were changed. So terribly, terribly changed. The small outpost that saw them off witnessed their return. But they did not live to tell the tale. Only one message got through to Vanguard High Command. One line. And we saw and beheld the return of Daricus and the 1000th Armada, and power was given unto him. And he went forth conquering and to conquer. And we looked, and beheld his name was Death, and hell followed with him. None knew the meaning of this archaic quote, but it rang in the minds of those at Central who heard it. But the Vanguard did not take it seriously, did not react as they should. Not until the first reports and footage came back in. Their onslaught was barbaric and utterly unstoppable. The Armada had been the top of the range, had been vast, even in the better times, the halcyon days of only 70 decades ago. The battered and overstretched battle fleets of the Vanguard of the present day were dispersed, unable to collect in force in time to resist. They seemingly destroyed everything in their path. None could know how this metamorphosis had come to be. The changes wrought beyond the veil. You see, an alien corruption pulsated within their hearts, bending their will to a new master. The corruption that flowed through the veins of the Veil-Touched had twisted their bodies and given them strength and stature well beyond the reach of normal humans. The corruption of Davicus and the rest of the Vanguard was slow, seeping into their consciousness over the course of decades. Faint whispers spoke to them, at first comforting and even emboldening, eventually demanding acts of utter madness. Not everyone survived the mental and physical assault, but those that did were forged anew with a drastic shift in both purpose and morality. And the savagery with which they assailed the Vanguard and anything in their path, it was shocking, repugnant, and terrifying. And many of the allied worlds were now making noises. Dark rumblings that this was between the humans of the Vanguard and whatever the Veil-Touched now were, that if they seceded, they could be left alone, that death might pass over them, for it was soon obvious enough to even the most strategically illiterate. The Armada was going home, to where it was forged. It was carving a path of annihilation toward Rohalin's prime itself. They could not be matched in the void or the skies, but it was their ground forces that were the most bloody. They knew no defeat, but worse by far was that they could also capitalize on a victory. And the evidence became stark and unmistakable. They were not executing most of the inhabitants of systems that were lifeless when they left. They were absorbing them, twisting them, recruiting them. Olmaios 4. A simple farming world was in the path of an attack group under Lady Maxima. The one who questioned the journey now had the brightest fires of zealotry within her. For of all the Veil-Touched, she is the most ardent in her worship of the Twisted Ones, her new dark gods. Her faith is so strong, her methods of torture and conditioning so perfected, that she can twist the souls of others to her will, to the worship of her faith, and infect them with her zeal. So the momentum of the Veil-Touched builds with every victory, every battle, for they take those who survive, those they conquer, and add them to their own. And now the elite forces of the Veil-Touched are preceded by wave upon wave of fanatically insane converts. Flanked by his loyal Veil-Touched cleavers, Lord Davicus prepares for the final assault on the high command of Rohalin's Prime. Once sworn to protect the capital and all its allied worlds, now Davicus would see the planet burn, until nothing remains but ash and bone. Welcome, gentle listener, welcome to the world of Ravaged Stars. Now here is their starter blurb. Ravaged Stars is a new line of highly detailed sci-fi miniatures for use in your favorite tabletop games. This crowdfunding campaign is for the first faction, the Veil-Touched, and includes corrupted soldiers hell-bent on destroying any and every planet within their vast reach. The armies from beyond the Veil have been designed in heroic 32mm scale and will be produced in high-quality PVC. These miniatures can be proxied in any wargame or board game you desire, or just collected and or painted to showcase your inherent good taste in tiny plastic people. Now, here is my perspective. This is an incredibly exciting new range at its very infancy, so you are literally witnessing gaming history. You'll be able to say, I was there. When it all started, I got the first boxes available, and I have never seen the level of detail, quality, and sheer quantity of models in one box before nor since. You remember those boxes of 13 Marines, the legendary ones, only a tenner at the time. Well, this is your chance to get in at the start of something I guarantee will be big, huge. And this is not just hype. I'm not being paid a single penny. I asked for plastic. But I truly, madly, and deeply believe this is one of those moments. You don't often see them come up. Hardly ever witness them with eyes wide open that you are right here, right now, witnessing a seismic and permanent change in the hobby world. So let's have a look at the models themselves, and yes, you could proxy the heck out of these for Chaos Forces. Sure, I'm going to. But ask yourself this question. Wouldn't you love to be able to do that? but also be able to get in at the ground level. Get the first army, wait for more to drop, then join me in kicking Miniwargaming Dave at miniwargaming.com until he has some rules out too. Because they are working on a background setting, they have a wordsmith, and I believe this is it. A new setting, new models, new game. But you can so use them in many other games too. Heck, you could play them with bolt action rules if you had the mind to invent some stats. Again, we're back to kicking Dave. Because I now want me some Vanguard. Yes, I do. If these are the bad guys, who are the good guys? Or the horrors in the background, the monstrous ones? They also pique the interest, no? No, I have no idea what they are or what's going on. I am just very excited to be about when it happens. So let's give this a chance. Unless you play in tournaments that do not allow proxy, you literally have nothing to lose and everything to gain. And I need you to know I have asked to be paid not one shiny penny. I want plastic. I would have done it anyway for free, but I want the darn plastic. I have had a couple of months and want this new army. My first Chaos army in sci-fi. So pledge hard to make the bold happy, for they may well then shower me in a few boxes. I am a harmless duck, but when it comes to models this nice, I am a greedy little duck. But in all seriousness, they are glorious models. It's an exciting time. Let's reward the amazing talent involved here in the creation, vision, sculpting and art that have begun what I believe will be an amazing journey. These will sell heaps in seconds. No, that's not FOMO, because it's a kick thingy, a Kickstarter. So I think they're made to order. You bet your butt they'll make more if the demand was there. No darn full scarcity from the bunker. It's just a happy mindscape where they knock it out of the park. So far, it elicits the expedition of the other ranges, because as I said, I want this army. It will be ours. Yes, precious. But also, we want the Vanguard. So let's get this line started with a bang, ladies and gents. Fans of sci-fi miniature wargaming, and all the glorious art, action, lore, and madness that then ensues. Because competition is good. It breeds excellence in the providers and choice for the consumer, and that is a good thing indeed. And yes, I can love both this and my first love, GW. Both is good. So, follow the links in the description, have a closer look, and then, for a fraction of the cost, you can get yourself a huge, amazing, beautifully sculpted and detailed army of chaos. Or as we're going to be saying one day, I got the first Ravaged Stars boxes. I was there at the start. I bought the veil touched. And now, no matter what you do today, do try to make some time for fun. Toodaloo.
I was right. You were less right.